And welcome in everyone to our event this afternoon, Jmore's JBiz virtual entrepreneurial event on Facebook Live. It's the 4th annual, and I'm your host, Gary Stein. First 2 annuals were held live and in person, last 2 live and online. Thank you, Zoom. Hopefully back to live and in person for number 5 coming up next year. First order of business today, as I'm sure is what is on most people's minds, the cicadas. I'm sure everyone is enjoying cicada season, correct? Just remember, 2 more weeks, that's it. If anybody has a cicada story they'd like to share today, please use that chat function on Zoom, and we'll get that in today as well. The question is, what is today actually about, and why are we here today? And I have to give credit actually to John Shmerler for this from Radcliffe Jewelers, who asked me the same question in a call that we had a little earlier this week. John will be on our panel today. And in a nutshell, I told John, and I think this is accurate, I think we're here to be inspired today. If I had to say it in a word, and that's why we join these entrepreneurial events. We want to hear about success. We want to hear from successful people, people who've given back to their community and who are making the world a better place. So if that's true, and this is what you've come for, then yes, you are in the right place. Sit back, relax, mute yourself, get your beverage. We'll be here for an hour, ask questions, get a lot of good responses, and learn a lot about some good people. None of this could happen without the support of our event sponsors and tonight's gracious speakers, and I'd like to take a moment to thank them all. Our lead sponsor and valued partner is Nemphos Brow, proven experts with a dedication to their clients in the law. Nemphos Brow attorneys are accomplished counselors in all areas of corporate law. They offer big firm experience with a boutique experience and focus on being strategic business partners to their clients. From venture capital, private equity, and financing to intellectual property, mergers, acquisitions, Nemphos Brow is a different kind of law firm supporting entrepreneurs, emerging and mature companies. We're also sponsored by Blue Ocean Investments, founded in 2004. Blue Ocean is a real estate investment and asset management company. They're headquartered in Baltimore, Maryland. Blue Ocean is active in a variety of sectors within the real estate industry, including multifamily, office, retail, industrial, hospitality, and self-storage. Blue Ocean focuses on creating lasting value for their partners. To date, Blue Ocean has raised over $145 million in investment capital and achieved strong, consistent returns for its investors. Blue Ocean's president and CEO, Jonathan Ehrenfeld, will be on our panel today. Also, Radcliffe Jewelers is Maryland's premier omni-channel seller of diamonds, fine jewelry, Swiss watches, and giftware. The company is considered an industry leader, especially in the areas of merchandising, marketing, and omni-channel selling, meaning both brick and mortar, online, social media selling, and enthusiast platforms. Radcliffe is the only official Rolex jeweler in the state of Maryland. And the president and CEO of Radcliffe, John Shmerler, will be our guest today. John, thank you. Also brought to you by SOS Technology Group, an 18-year IT managed services firm. They specialize in cloud hosting, network infrastructure, and help desk services for small to mid-sized businesses across the country. A unique approach to technology allows customers to elevate their businesses and take the guesswork out of IT. Their CEO, Harel Turkel, is on our panel. Harel, welcome to our show today. And also by AutoBuy, one of the largest independent auto and truck buying companies in the United States, through both 11 buying centers in Florida and now a completely virtual buying process for all 50 states. AutoBuy provides consumers with an opportunity to maximize the amount of money they can sell their vehicle for. Get all the details by going to WePayTheMax.com. Partner of the company and one of Randallstown's finest, Jimmy Berg, is with us today. Jimmy, thank you for joining us. And finally, we're brought to you by Atlantic Mechanical, has been proudly serving its clients in Maryland for over 30 years. They specialize in commercial and residential plumbing for builders, contractors, and property owners. Their track record of repeat clients speaks for itself. Their CEO is Jonathan Ehrenfeld, who's pulling double duty today. Jonathan, thank you for doing that. So those are our sponsors and speakers this afternoon. A quick note to our viewers, you can use the chat on our Zoom to ask questions of any of our speakers here this afternoon. We'll get that question to them, hopefully, in a very timely fashion. Before we start the program, I'd like to turn it over to our valued Jmore partner and a good friend of mine, an entrepreneur himself, George Nemphos, from the law firm of Nemphos Brow, for our opening remarks. George, please take it away.
Well, Gary, thank you very much for that wonderful introduction, and it's a pleasure to be here. This is a great night. This is a very special event. We have an opportunity to celebrate entrepreneurs and the entrepreneurial spirit. You know, we have a real big soft spot at our firm for entrepreneurs. Formerly all big firm lawyers, we broke out on our own and decided to put our money where our mouth is and did what you all have been so successful in doing in starting a business. And through that, we've decided and really have pushed ourselves to engage with, support, and help build the entrepreneurial community in and around the state of Maryland, the Mid-Atlantic, and in the United States. You know, tonight is a testament to your endeavors, your drive, your tenacity, and your dreams. And we stand here with everybody else and salute you for all that you have done. Being an entrepreneur today takes a lot more than just a dream. It takes a lot of guts. It takes a lot of, quite frankly, that something that makes every day, worthwhile, despite the difficulties that can occur during the process. And, we at the firm, enjoy standing side by side with our clients and help them realize or be a part of their entrepreneurial dreams. So with that, I think hopefully you all enjoy the evening. You'll join me in celebrating our speakers and our panelists and our attendees, and take away something tonight that will inspire you and drive you to continue to do what you do. And hopefully, if you're not an entrepreneur and you're thinking about being one, it gives you the wherewithal and the desire to go off and do it yourself, because it is something special. So I congratulate each and every one of you, and I'm wishing you all the best and well health. And my only cicada story is, if someone has a good method to keep your dog from eating them, I'd really appreciate the tip. Thanks, Gary.
We'll definitely try to cover that, George. Thank you so much. And yeah, if anybody does have a good tip, please let us know. All right, thank you. So what are the stories of these four entrepreneurs that we have here today? What are the questions that they had to ask themselves before they really started a new life? I mean, when you think about it, because an entrepreneur does have experienced life in a very different way than people who, are generally not entrepreneurs. What mottos do they live by? What is their journey about, perhaps, besides for just making money? So with those questions in mind and more, I'm sure that'll be on the way, let's start to unpack that with, let's pick Jimmy Berg, the pride of Randallstown High, class of 80. I love that, Jimmy. Give us the who, what, where, and why of Jimmy Berg in a nutshell.
Well, I'll start with my non-cicada story. I'm on Long Island right now, and we have no cicadas, so I'm going to make you all jealous.
That's not good to hear.
It must be a Mid-Atlantic thing, but yeah. I'm on the South Shore of Long Island, and I lived in Baltimore for 50 years. I'm a graduate of Randallstown, and I guess my entrepreneurial start was cutting lawns. It's you always used to hear of guys having a paper route, but I had a lawnmower, and I used to cut the neighbors' lawns, and I always had a drive to make money, and I always hustled. I always worked. I always wanted to. I always aspired to be in business. Paid my way through college, and ended up in the car business, and I was in a family business with my father-in-law, Len Stoller, for 25 years, and then went off on my own up in New York for back in 2010. So been up in New York since then. Now I have 2 Toyota dealerships and a Chevrolet dealership, and bought into AutoBuy about 3 years ago down in Florida. And I'm very, very fortunate to have 2 of my sons in business with me. And it's just, we have fun. And I think the important thing is, you live it 24/7. It's not a business where, it's not a lifestyle where you leave at 5 o'clock and that's it. It's, if you're going to be an entrepreneur, you have to live and breathe it. You have employees, you have responsibilities, you have heartaches, but you have the highs and the lows, but it's a 24/7 business. And, unless somebody's willing to do that, and I think a lot of people are just not cut out for that. that's the whole thing. It's entrepreneurism is not for everybody. And, I think, looking at everybody on this panel, I'm sure they'll say the same thing. It's especially the last year, it's been very, very trying. And a year ago, it was scary. And today for us, it's been great, but it's a very, very trying experience being an entrepreneur at times, but it can be very, very rewarding as well.
I just want to remind our viewers, if anybody has any questions, please use the Zoom chat and we will get to them as soon as we possibly can. Jimmy, while we're with you for just a second, very timely actually that you're on with us today, seeing as to what's going on in the automobile world right now. Car rental prices are sky high, used car prices, new cars, everything. We've heard about the semiconductor shortage, people coming out of pandemic, et cetera, the demand. Just from your perspective, from where you're sitting, what are you seeing as far as the auto industry is concerned?
It's, in 36 years of being in the business, never seen anything like this. It's, I normally carry at my one Toyota store 600 to 700 new cars in stock. I have 80 right now.
Wow.
The lot's empty. We actually walked it today and we said it's a good time to stripe it and get the guy out to put new stripes on the lot. And it's but yeah, and the used car business is just crazy. The prices, a car was worth $10,000 a year ago might be worth $15,000 today. So we're seeing prices go up on used cars where always they went down. So it's just the craziest time we've ever seen the car business. And it used to be you could buy a car for invoice or into the holdback. Now everybody's paying full list or over full list for the cars. So it's just the craziest time. We just heard, some of the manufacturers just shut down plants again for another 4 to 6 weeks. So we could be seeing going into probably the second quarter of next year before things get back to normal. So it's been a crazy time, but it's actually for us, it's been, on Long Island, it's been great for us because our customers are very, very loyal. We have a great employee team, and service has been really busy. So it's actually been a good year for us.
All right, sounds good. Hey, from Jimmy Berg, let's head over to a young man who at the age of 8 years old sold soda cans in school. He bought them for about 10 or 15 cents a piece at the store and then resold them for 25 cents to his friends in school. Jonathan Ehrenfeld, I hope I'm not embarrassing you with that story, president and CEO of Blue Ocean and Atlantic Mechanical. I know that story because we had a Zoom chat a few weeks ago and you told me that. But what motivated you to do that at that time in your life, all of 8 years old?
Well, I just wanted to have some money in my pocket. My parents really didn't have any money, and anytime I wanted to go to the store and buy candy, I just needed to find like 10 cents or 25 cents in the couch or something. So I just felt like I need to get my hands on $1 or $2. And how am I going to do that? I guess I'll sell some soda cans. So what other way is there?
So from that at 8 years old, here you are. I'm not exactly sure how old you are, to tell you the truth, but you started Blue Ocean in 2004. And just a few years later, the world almost collapsed with the Great Recession, a horrible time, obviously, for real estate. But it actually turned out to be the opposite for you, Jonathan, an opportunity. Why don't we pick it up right there and just kind of tell the viewers what happened in 2008?
Yeah, so in 2008, I was 23 years old. And I think for me, that what was helpful was I really didn't know much better. So I was out there, and there was a war going on around me, but I was too young to, I think, take notice. I saw opportunity. I guess I didn't live enough to see enough decimation. And so I didn't live through a prior recession. I wasn't in business through a prior recession. And so I just felt like, there's so much opportunity around me where, multifamily properties that were, just 12 months ago trading for, $80,000, $90,000 a unit were now available for $50,000 or $55,000 a unit. And I was just saying to myself, the yield on these things is just incredible. Why aren't people, investing in these properties? And I think the answer, looking back, was just pure fear. Everybody was just petrified of losing or getting decimated. And so, for me, I just didn't experience that at that age. And so I was just kind of going full throttle, and I was fortunate to be one of the few people in that space at that time who was, moving forward at an aggressive pace.
All right, sounds good. And obviously you've prospered since. So thank you for that. Let's toss it over to John Shmerler, President and CEO of Radcliffe Jewelers, certainly a ubiquitous name here in Baltimore. John, you started out as a commercial banker, actually, in Philadelphia after graduating from Bucknell, go Bison. How did you get from that to jewelry?
So my journey through the entrepreneurial world is probably a little bit different than some of the other guys here. My dad worked for the same company for 42 years. The day he graduated from college, he retired from that company 42 years later, was quite successful along the way. There wasn't this giant entrepreneurial spirit that ran, through our family, but my father and my mother both had a pretty amazing work ethic that they Jewish guilted onto their kids. So when I graduated from college, I graduated in '88, had an offer, a Wall Street offer in '87, '88, which was then pulled as a result of the stock market crash. So I was a guy without a job as I was graduating from college, and was lucky to land a job at a commercial bank, a small commercial bank in Philadelphia. That was a very customer centric, kind of old school community type bank. And I was presented with some opportunities early on as a young guy because of the size and scope of the bank. So at a pretty young age, talking about not knowing how to do anything, I had client responsibilities almost right away as a young 20-something. I would put my wife and I spent every penny that we had putting her through law school. And as she was graduating from law school, I was about 5 years out of college at the time. So I was 26 and I applied to business school to go back on, my hope was to go back onto the Wall Street on-ramp by going back to business school. At that time, I went out to tell my clients, my business clients, that I was leaving the bank. And one of them was a guy who was a third generation jeweler who I had entrusted and loaned money to, and when he couldn't find anybody to lend him money. And he sort of talked me into this idea that I wasn't being fair to my wife, that she wasn't going to be able to start a law practice or any type of a career in the law, and that he wondered whether or not I would come on board with him. His business was growing, and sort of help him get rooted in what he was doing. You give it a couple of years, he said, and if it works, great, and if it doesn't work, you can always go back to business school when you're 28. Well, we've been partners now for close to 25, 26, 27 years. So my 2-year experiment is still going on. He's a very entrepreneurial guy, and the two of us really help to balance each other out. He is a eternal optimist. The next great thing is always around the corner. I'm a little bit more rooted in some of the operational things, the execution, and figuring out ways to actually take some of the big ideas that we've dreamed up together over a long period of time and bring them to life. So in the early 90s, we did a roll up. We bought stores all around the country. We packaged them up. We sold them off. We've been in publishing, which was pretty good to us. We've been in a couple of startup internet businesses, 2 of which were really bad, one of which is actually very successful now, as one of the largest sellers of pre-owned watches on the internet. And then we have our brick and mortar business, which is located here in Philadelphia and in Naples, Florida. So my journey was a little bit different, but I really agree with a lot of what Jimmy said. You have to kind of eat and breathe it, and you have to really believe in what you're doing. And as we get into the conversation, I would say that the most important thing for anybody who's thinking about doing something on their own is to know why you're in it. And if it's purely a money or a profit motive, that's going to be a tougher road. But if you really have a set of solid core values and purpose statement, and you live to those core values, I guarantee you that any company that you think is good, any product that you think is good, any business that you think is good, if you Google them and you try to look at what their core value statement is, it will resonate with you. And that's what we've tried to do for the last 25 years, is to sort of make sure that we were very articulate about what we were aiming to do for our clients and for our team, for our industry and for the community. And that's sort of been the go-to for us.
Yeah, I think that's going to be a common thing among you all. And thank you, John. And I know it's definitely a common thing for our next guest, Harel Turkel, the CEO of SOS Technology. Harel, you and I actually had a conversation, it was, I think, over a year ago, if I'm not mistaken. It could have been even more. And you told me that you graduated from Towson University with a degree in international business, which I know is accurate. But you also told me in the same conversation that you knew from a young age that you had to do something with computers. You were mesmerized by computers. So why not get a degree in computer technology or coding or something along those lines?
So it's funny, and thanks for hosting tonight, Gary. This is a great event thus far. It's great to see you all. So early on, I remember being 6th, 7th grade, going into CompUSA on York Road when it still existed. My father would take me through the aisles, and the Toshiba laptop displays were huge, and he owned a business, and they did technical training across the country, but very much computer centric. And I used to just reformat hard drives and wipe windows, and his machines they used for training would be totally unusable after I touched them. And rather than have one of his coworkers fix it, he said, you know what, you have to take care of this yourself. So I'd spend weekends as a 13, 14-year-old reinstalling Windows 3.1 at the time, getting the applications back on so his people could do their job on Monday morning when they had to travel across the country. That point, though, it was always a hobby. I didn't think it was going to be my career, to tell you the truth. And I always loved international travel. I backpacked after college for about 9 months with buddies of mine. So, the focus of Europe and Israel, having family in Israel, that was always very much core to kind of my being. So computers just seemed like a hobby, but I really fell into it business-wise, and that's why I kind of followed that path, to tell you the truth. But similar to these guys here, whenever I had a chance, I had 2, 3, 4 jobs in high school. I always had discipline issues with my managers and with the business owners. I knew I was destined to be on my own. Junior and senior year of high school, I ran a detailing business. It was called AutoBuy Detailing. We were on the cover of the Jewish Times in 1997. My mother was the happiest Jewish mother in town. But I knew, you kind of make your own journey. You pave your own way. It just seemed second nature to me. My father's business aspirations over the years really drove that home.
So Harel, while I have you, I just want to follow up. You kind of glossed over a little bit the fact that you backpacked through Southeast Asia for basically a gap year. But you also told me an interesting story about when you were on the Tongariro Pass, if I'm not mistaken, which is in New Zealand, which is where Lord of the Rings was filmed. You actually received your first offer ever to buy a business. You were at the age of what, 21, 22? Tell us that story.
So when I was at Towson, I worked for a company called Professor Computer, and they did in-office and in-home computer training. Back then, viruses were just becoming a thing, and we learned how to remove viruses and help businesses and homeowners with their computer issues. And when I was backpacking across Southeast Asia, I was hiking that Tongariro crossing in New Zealand. I had a Sony Ericsson phone. I remember it was one of the first color model phones. It was 2003. I'm hiking up this pass. It starts off at 75 degrees. We're in the snow now. It's 40 degrees. And the cell phone rings in my backpack. And I'm like, oh, what the hell is this, right? So I answered the phone, and it's my previous employer from Towson. And she mentioned that she wanted to maybe sunset the business, focus on raising her family. Would I be interested in buying the book of business? And I said, sure, I'll be back home in about 4 or 5 months, but let's touch base there. And that was the beginning of SOS Technology Group in 2004, that book of business.
Just out of curiosity, have you ever been back there since?
It's funny. So my kids and wife always joke that I hate going to the same place twice, with the exception of Israel. But New Zealand was so stunning. I took my father back in 2007, and we did the North and the South Island. It's truly a magical place. It's very nice.
Gotcha. Okay, so let's remind our viewers before we continue that the chat feature is able. I already have some texts that we're going to share in just a couple of minutes with our panel. Also, that we're brought to you by our valued partners, the law offices of Demphos Brown, Blue Ocean Realty and Investments, AutoBuy, Radcliffe Jewelers, SOS Technology, and Atlantic Mechanical. So let's get to actually starting to talk about the business and about factors that go into your decision to become an entrepreneur. I do have some questions right now, which I will impart to you guys. They're on my phone, so just give me one moment here. John Shmerler, let's go back to you. This is from Stacy. What is the best advice that you received as a young entrepreneur? And I know, John, your journey may have been a little different, but I'm sure you probably had mentors, obviously your dad, business partners. What's some advice that you would impart to somebody?
So I'll give you two. The first one may run counter to a lot of people, and I think there'll be some real true entrepreneurs that will laugh and smile at it. When I first really started in the entrepreneurial world, I was really about expense management and managing the expense side of the balance sheet. And my partner put his arm around me one day and said, can you please stop worrying about how to control expenses and figure out how to get some top line revenue to cover those expenses? So I think most entrepreneurs will laugh at that and know that, the next big deal is around the corner and the next big revenue stream is around the corner. But to be bold and to be thinking about, what the next big top line idea will be, it'll hide a lot of your mistakes on the expense side. And I think you can only sort of manage the expense side so much to sort of get you to that finish line. And then the other, I think, big piece of advice I got was that everything that comes out of your mouth should always pass the embarrassment test. A mentor of mine a long time ago said to me, choose your words wisely. Make sure that anything that you say, that if it came back to you through, my mother, but through your mother or through somebody who you love, would you be okay with those words coming back to you? So always be sure that you can pass the embarrassment test with anything that you're saying.
Sounds good. Jimmy, there's a question for you here. It's actually on your business or on the automotive business in general. And this question is the future of electric vehicles versus gas-powered vehicles. What do you see?
That seems to be, on top of everybody's mind. Right now, the electric car market is less than 3% of new cars that are sold. Obviously, this administration is pushing it pretty hard. The infrastructure is not there. It's definitely coming. It's just a matter, it's going to be evolutionary. There's very little consumer demand other than the luxury side with Tesla and a couple of the other brands. For example, our Toyota showroom, we sell hybrids, we sell plug-in hybrids, but we get almost zero customers walk in asking for an electric car. So there's no real consumer demand at this point, but I think gradually it's going to start happening. But I think it's going to be evolutionary. But, it's, to me, it's a mode of transportation. So whether it's hydrogen powered or internal combustion engine, or whether it's battery electric, as long as it moves you from one place to another, and if it's clean, great. I'm all for a clean environment. For us as a dealer, it's going to be a big change because a battery electric vehicle has 1/3 of the moving parts that a gasoline engine car has. So it's a lot less service and parts business. Electronics, as you can see with chips, the shortage in computer chips out there is affecting production right now. So, everything changes. There's always going to be change. And, it's definitely going to happen, but I think it's going to be a lot slower than people think.
But
Jimmy, where are all the batteries going to go?
Well, that's a good question. And, people say, oh, it's so clean. Ask people where the lithium comes from. How much does it take mining and tearing up the earth to create lithium to make the batteries? So it's not as clean as everybody thinks. You still have to produce electricity. Electricity just doesn't come out of the wall. You have to burn something to make electricity. If you're not going to burn coal, you have to burn oil, or you have to burn gas. There's not enough windmills out there. There's not enough, hydroelectric dams. So it's the infrastructure is not there to create all the electricity. And so there's a lot of challenges. The technology is just not there. So like I said, it's going to be evolutionary. They were talking a few years ago about self-driving cars. Well, now all of a sudden, we're not going to have self-driving cars. There's just going to be driver assist. And the new cars today do, laser guided cruise control. The cars will keep you in your lane if you stray a little bit. It'll stop you from hitting the car ahead of you. You know, all those things that will assist you are now being integrated into the car, but it's not going to be the point where you sit in the back seat and the car just takes you there. It's just not going to get to that level. Same thing with battery electric. It's going to take time. It's going to take a lot more time than people think. So, you know, I think the gasoline car will be around for a long time, but, you know, to me, again, if we can drive a clean car and if we can make renewable, you know, use renewable energy, you know, I think it's fantastic for the environment, but I think it's just going to take a lot longer than people think.
Here's one for Harel Turkel. Harel, I know you give back. All of you give back to the community. That's one of the core values that you all share. Harel, your work with the Associated and others as well. What mottos do you live by? What is in it? How did you want your life to look over and above just making money as an entrepreneur?
That is a great question. So, you know, early on when I started the business, we had a number of nonprofit organizations that we supported in IT. And I was always really envious of their missions and their values and, you know, why they do what they do. And really early on, I remember the early conversations with my wife, Randy, we were just engaged at the time. I said, if I can't run a non-for-profit, I want to be as profitable as I can and give back as much as I can, right? So every year it's important for us to find organizations. The Associated is paramount to me, JCS, LifeBridge, Sinai, Baltimore Child Abuse Center. So a number of organizations, and we try to do good by them, right? We try to be as philanthropic as possible. And I also have a number of nonprofit clients still today. We price them differently. We give them different terms. I mean, it's really just important to help support their mission when you can. So advice would be just don't always work for the bottom dollar, but make sure that you're giving back, because I'll tell you, my involvement over the last 18 years, even though I never push my agenda for what I do in any of my nonprofit involvement, people see that you give, people see that you care, and I say it's returned fivefold in the growth of my business over the years.
Here's one for Jonathan Ehrenfeld. Jonathan, what's a win for you? How do you succeed besides just the dollars at the end, at the bottom of the balance sheet?
Yeah, it's a great question, Gary. I think it really starts with the people who I work with. I think, you know, I come to work every day and I'm trying to succeed in, you know, building a business, trying to be successful in making the businesses run and operate. And as I look around and there are some just incredible people who I have the opportunity to work with every day, directly in my office here in Owings Mills and in other locations really across the country. And, you know, I think about them and I think about what's important for them. I try to keep them in mind. So for starters, I would say, you know, are they achieving their goals? Are they, you know, are they growing within the company? Are they, you know, do they have proper benefits? Do they have, you know, do they have the tools that they need to be successful within the organization? Have we been communicating properly? You know, what the company's goals are and where we're headed, you know, and I'm not saying that we do all those things because, you know, you never really do enough. I think as an owner or entrepreneur, you could always do more. But I think that for me, it's present on my mind is, are we taking care of our team members? Because I think we've all learned that as good as we try to be in our positions, in leading an organization or organizations, it starts and ends with the people that are supporting you. So, you know, if we can empower them and if we could show our appreciation and we can properly recognize and compensate them, then I think, you know, we're always going to be successful. So I think that that's probably, you know, where it starts. And I think I would kind of come behind Harel and say, you know, trying to identify those organizations in the community is really important as well. You know, trying to support, you know, those who are really giving of themselves and giving their lives for the betterment of the community is equally as critical. So, you know, we have our work cut out for us as entrepreneurs. I think, you know, how do we measure success? I think when we're properly, you know, taking care of our team members, when we're looking around in the community and trying to make an impact, that in addition to obviously the basics, you know, treating our customers well and providing great services. But I think before you go home and before you come to work in the morning, I think those things are present on your mind. How are we treating others? Which, you know, I try to keep in mind myself.
And on that note, Jonathan, I'm going to turn it over to Jimmy Berg. Jimmy, a great quote from you. Making money is nice, but making a difference in people's lives is what's important. Smiles on people's faces are your best investment. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Well, it's it's funny. I don't know Jonathan, but from my days in Baltimore, obviously, spent a lot of time at the Associated and different nonprofits, working with Harel and John. And it's funny that you have guys on this panel who are entrepreneurs who are very, very busy, yet also very involved in nonprofits. And it's always, if you have a job to do, give it to a busy person, because busy guys and ladies, they still find extra time to do the nonprofit stuff and get it done. And it's amazing because, I used to laugh. Sometimes I spent more hours at the Associated and on meetings than I did at work, some weeks. It was, just making a difference in the community. And, it's, I was campaign chair. I was chair of the board of the Associated. The time that I gave, in Baltimore to the different nonprofits that I was involved in, Ronald McDonald House, I was on the board of the Symphony. It was just, I loved giving back to the different nonprofits. And up in New York, I'm on the board of Sunrise Camps, which is in Baltimore, Horizon Camps for children with pediatric cancer and their siblings. And, when you go to the camp and you see, people thrown into that situation and smiles on these kids' faces, and the parents are so appreciative. And you say, you know what, that's what I'm making a difference. And we get, at my dealerships, I get all of our team invested in it. We do a big pizza party every year at the camp. We take a whole, slew of our team members and their kids, and we go to the camp, and they see that it's not just, like you said, it's not just about making money. It's about giving back to the community. We're part of the community, and you have to be. I treat my employees like family, and I think if I have happy employees, they're going to treat customers even better, and they feel like part of the community and giving back. And I think all of us, on this panel are doing the same thing. And it's not just running a business and making money; it's giving back as well. And those are the special things that we do. And really putting smiles on people's faces is what it's all about.
Gary, if I can just jump on top of that,
Sure.
The cameras don't do justice here. Jimmy's much older than I am, even though it might not look like it.
Don, you're more gray hair than me.
But there was a moment about I'm guessing 14 or 15 years ago. I get a phone call from Jimmy Berg. He says, "Hey, any chance you got time for lunch next week? I'd love to sit down with you. And me and Howard Friedman, we want to just chat with you." And we met at one of Howard's favorite Chinese restaurants down on Reisterstown Road. And said to my wife, I'm like, yeah, we give to the Associated. I'm sure that there's a solicitation coming, but it can't be what this is about. I can't figure this out. Why is Jimmy and Howard? Why is this like a tag team thing, right? So sit down in the booth and we do the obligatory, how's the family? Everybody's good. And I think me being me, I just sort of said to Jimmy, like, cut to the chase. Like, what are we here to talk about? And I remember it. And Jimmy, I don't know if you remember it or not, but you sort of said to me at the time, like, engaging financially is only one piece of the pie. And that volunteerism and engaging, whether it's with the Associates, this had to be at the time about the Associated, but I was also involved with the same thing that everybody else, LifeBridge and a couple of other things, Children's Museum, whatever. But I remember walking away from that lunch and having it hit me and say, yes, I can write a check, and writing a check is one form of philanthropy. But to really be a part of the community and to be a leader, you have to engage philanthropically. Part of the Radcliffe core values when it comes to the community is to lead by example, encourage other people to follow, and to engage both financially and in volunteerism. And I think, I have many of our employees who I say to them, you've got to be involved in something. And if it takes the company supporting you with that, with either time and or money or both, let's try to engage with something that's important to you. But I think a lot of my push into volunteerism actually probably came from that lunch with Jimmy and Howard.
No, you know what? That was a very expensive lunch for you, but I think it probably, it was also a catalyst. So it's, I'm glad we did that lunch.
Absolutely. Here's a question for the group, and it's this from Jay. Harel, I think I'll start with you on this one. A question to everyone regarding guidance for funding of new ventures. What can you tell Jay about starting up and what you would need resource-wise to do that and how you would go about getting it?
I think it depends on the industry in particular. I mean, I'll tell you the truth, 18 years ago when I started this, it was that conversation, right? Do you borrow from someone? Do you go to a bank for a loan? Do you bootstrap this and do it yourself? And I chose one path, and I have friends who started businesses who chose another. And your growth might be slower or quicker depending on the route that you take. But I always grew up, you know, with the mentality of not owing anybody anything, you know. So I was always more in the mindset of, let's just do this slow, organic, easy growth, not have to worry about the bank notes, et cetera, et cetera. But I'll tell you, I mean, right now, private equity groups, depending on what this person's looking to do, private equity groups are knocking on doors left and right. They love good ideas. I keep hearing about individuals who are being funded to start up a healthcare billing company or you know, funded to start up a consulting firm that's very niche. So I think really depending on the industry he's looking to start a business in, there could be a plethora of options, but it's really a matter of his risk tolerance and if he wants to, you know, beg, borrow, steal, or if he wants to do this on his own, right, with his own funds.
So while I'm with you, Harel, your business has really, I mean, technology just in general has really morphed and changes dramatically, like from week to week sometimes. Over 18 years now, you have changed, you know, the way that you've accumulated revenue streams over time, and cybercrime, cybersecurity now. Just talk a little bit about the evolution of your business over 18 years and what you're seeing now.
So I'll tell you, the first 10 years of the business, you know, cybersecurity didn't exist. That wasn't nomenclature. No one was talking about ransomware and infections, and somewhere overnight, right? And like in 2014, everything seemed to change. Hackers got smarter, infections became rampant, and really protecting your data and protecting your most crucial business documents became just a necessity for every IT group. So, you know, we had to learn. We were constantly evolving as an IT business, but you know, we had to become cyber experts as well. And as I always tell my team, if we can't do antivirus and backup well, then we shouldn't be in business, right? Those two things are the two best lines of defense against ransomware and hackers and attacks. But you'd be surprised how many IT companies just don't focus on those two core competencies. But I'll tell you also, so we were getting used to the trends, it was growing, and all of a sudden cloud computing became a thing. The idea of having on-premise hardware and servers became an obsolete idea. And then you started getting into cloud services, and then Amazon came in with their AWS and Microsoft came in with Azure. So it was quickly evolving. And last year during the pandemic, I mean, we had a pretty healthy cloud business, but so many customers who were on the fence about, should we sunset our on-premise servers? Does it make sense to still keep infrastructure in-house? I think the move to working hybrid or virtual really made that decision for them. The idea of keeping infrastructure in-house is unnecessary these days with the great cloud service options and the security that comes along with it. So really a moving target, but you know, our team, to their credit, we get certified, we get recertified, we're constantly going to vendor conferences, and it's very much a fast-moving target.
Gary, going back to the question, I apologize. I don't know Jonathan that well, but I know Jimmy and I have had lots of opportunities to look at startups, and people ask, to invest. I think that to try to get a startup going entirely with other people's money. I think as a private investor, I want to see the entrepreneur have a lot of skin in the game. Yeah. That's for sure. And the first question I always ask is, you don't have everything you got in it, no matter how modest or how wealthy you are, then that always leads me to a pause. So I think, if the idea is great and you feel super strongly about it, invest in it yourself, take it to where you can go, convince investors that you've got everything that you can humanly put into it, energy and financially. That's a more compelling argument to go get investors. I don't know how you feel, Jimmy, but that's, a lot of how I feel about it.
Yeah, let me turn that over to Jonathan Ehrenfeld, because Jonathan, you had some investors and you also had some skin in the game as well. That the real estate industry, tell me a little bit about that. And I guess where I want to head to it is, you actually bought an iconic property in Baltimore at the intersection of 695 and the Beltway, the old Pikesville Hilton. I'm sure everybody's passed it. I'm sure everybody sees all the construction that's going on with it. What's happening there? What's happening with your company right now as far as that's concerned?
Yeah, so it's the DoubleTree Pikesville. I mean, great property, fantastic location, very, very exciting to see that, to kind of have the opportunity to develop or redevelop that place. As you said, Gary, iconic, I think is a great word for it. We've done a lot of work there. Obviously the pandemic has, delayed things and certainly made a financial impact, as it has virtually all other hospitality properties across the country. But we've kind of pivoted and adjusted our business plan a little bit. When we first bought the property in 2018, we expanded and renovated the ballroom facilities. We signed a lease with our bank tenant up front, and we're almost finished constructing them a new bank branch. We're announcing very shortly 2 other national retailers that are going to go up on Reisterstown Road and 695. I think everybody in the community is going to love the companies that are going to be coming in there, and I think they'll enjoy their presence. Bringing Coppermine in and renovating their fitness and tennis facility as part of the project, and so it's been a rewarding experience, but it hasn't been without its challenges. For us, when the pandemic hit, we went from $600,000 a month in revenue to $7,000, $8,000 a month in revenue. So you're talking about shrinking by 98%. Overnight, basically. And so we still have real estate taxes, we still have the insurance bill, we still have the mortgage. None of those things are going away. So it was definitely a challenge. We pivoted and we went directly into leasing our hotel rooms for monthly stays. So folks who are in transition, moving in between jobs, in between houses, maybe going through a divorce, needing a place for 1 month, 2 months, or 3 months. And we filled up a third of the hotel with that transient business, and we were able to, just get by, cover a mortgage, pay the basic expenses. And since that, since the pandemic has kind of settled down and people are coming back and traveling, we've seen a resurgence in travel, just as, again, other hotels have across the country, and things are definitely looking up again. But, we still have our work to do over there. We're going to be renovating all the rooms. We're filling up our ballroom. I mean, our phones are ringing off the hook for event space, and people are starting to make weddings again. People are starting to get together. We're seeing, social events for businesses. And so, things are definitely coming back, but it's, I guess, to answer your question, it was exciting. We hit a wall with the pandemic and things are starting to come back again. So I would say be on the lookout over the next month or two for a big announcement in terms of, the retailers we're bringing to Pikesville, and hopefully, the rest will be history over there.
Sounds good. Here's a question really for everybody. Jimmy, I'll start with you. Do you think we're doing a good job of encouraging young entrepreneurs in general, with college doing that, or how are we doing it these days? Do you talk to people about it? Do you talk to anybody in your companies about it?
I have to tell you, I think the regulations and the tax laws and the training in college, and I think it's horrible. I think to succeed as an entrepreneur from the start today, I think is very difficult. I think you have to have some real tenacity. And I don't think colleges teach it well at all. They may claim that they have entrepreneurship, classes and stuff like that, but it's really, I don't see that at all. I think, and not enough kids get out and work. I mean, you see very few kids, a lot of kids coming out of college, they're getting their first job. The first time they ever worked is when they get out of college. But it's, I can tell you in New York, the rules and regulations and laws are so restrictive on doing so many things. It's very, very, the bar is so high to open a business. It's just very difficult. And I think it's much more geared toward national chains and, companies with a lot of capital and a lot of infrastructure. To be a single proprietorship is very difficult today.
John, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I sort of agree. I mean, I think we live in a very fast-paced world. You see pockets of things that are very interesting. So, I think young people who have the same, probably, let's call it what we used to call street smarts associated today with the technology. That they're able to succeed very quickly. They may not be, the businesses might not be longevity driven, but using social platforms to sell things, using social platforms to influence. There's certainly a whole world of entrepreneurship that old guys like me are still like, I'm learning every day from the young people that I'm around. But I think that where I agree with Jimmy is someone who wants to build an infrastructure business that's going to be a long-term, that's just a hard uphill battle today. And I don't think that most of the kids that I meet are very well prepared for that.
So it actually brings up an interesting point, John. And Harel, I wanted to toss this to you. Is it really something that you can even learn in a classroom? Can a professor adequately teach something like that? Or is it just what John kind of said? I mean, you just got to go out there and Jimmy, you just got to go out there and do it and have that mindset.
So I'll tell you, I agree with what John and Jimmy said wholeheartedly. And I think that the biggest issue with today's society is that people have become so afraid to take risks in particular. Maybe it's post-terrorism, pandemic, recession of 2008, whatever it may be. I mean, just in general, people just aren't taking those same risks. And then couple that with social media and who these kids and teenagers and people right out of college are following. Like my kids are following YouTubers who make multi-million dollars a year just by unpacking toys, right? So like there's a disconnect with reality, right? I mean, all of a sudden this guy in Texas has his own clothing line because he was a backyard trampoliner, and these kids are aspiring to be YouTube stars. So I'd couple that with also just the fact that people have tried a lot, and that there have been many failures in businesses, and to get into like the restaurant business or to open up a car dealership today, like it's almost like I've been there, done that. People have established it. So someone leaving college may not take that same risk. And then to your other question, I know in our business, a college degree is unnecessary in IT. I mean, we almost think that it's actually going to cause them to come in with a little bit of too high expectations. Instead, we rather kind of mold you to the kind of tech support we're looking for. We want you to get your Microsoft certifications and your Cisco and learn about cloud computing and really let us develop your skill set, or come from a competitor and then come back over to us. But certain industries, an undergraduate degree or graduate degree just doesn't apply, at least for us.
Mm-hmm. And Jonathan, you're a perfect person to talk about this because you actually kind of grew up in the trades business, carpentry, welding, etc., those types of things. So from where you stand or where you sit, what are you seeing in terms of young people and thinking back to the kinds of things that you were interested in when you were a young person, younger, put it that way?
Yeah, I think most folks are still focused on getting their education and still trying to go up through the traditional path and getting degrees and then taking their degrees into internships to permanent employment. I think that's kind of the track that's been followed. But I try to encourage people that I speak with not to necessarily focus on that, to try to look internally to their own needs and see what's important to them. If they're if they have a certain skill, or if they're interested in a specific industry, or potentially starting something up themselves, you don't necessarily have to go that route, all because that's what 90% of other people in his or her space are doing. Doesn't mean that you have to follow that same path. For me, it was pretty clear. I was not interested in that higher education experience. I felt like I had enough skill to pursue my dreams. But other people just aren't fortunate enough to have that self-realization at when they're 17, 18, 19. So I just try to bring that to the forefront and say, hey, you don't have to go down that path. It's not a bad path if you decide to do that, but just think about what you need and what's best for you, because there's plenty of opportunity out there, and it doesn't have to be through you don't have to access that opportunity through college.
Jonathan, I'm going to stay with you. There's a question here specifically for you from George. What's your opinion on the glut of vacant retail space across the country and up and down Reisterstown Road locally, Route 140, specifically the Walmart that's closing in Owings Mills, which backs up to what used to be the Sam's Club, and now at the end of this month, neither one of them are going to be occupied?
Yeah. I mean, real estate continues to morph slowly. It's not the fastest moving industry, but it does change. I think Jimmy was talking about change earlier when he was talking about cars. Change is inevitable across the board. I think one thing we learn as entrepreneurs, and I think even just, anybody pretty much who's keeping an eye on life, is that things are never static. And so if you are comfortable in a position, I would suggest you look around, because something's going to change soon, and it might not be so comfortable in any area of life. So real estate's no different. You look at retail spaces across the country, and we're seeing a transformation from, if you have a shopping center that was, 150,000 square feet that lost its anchor, like Domino's, the inline retailers behind them are closing. Now all of a sudden you have 150,000 square feet of vacant space, or virtually vacant space, maybe with one or two occupants. Where's that going to go? What we're seeing across the country is folks are converting that space more experiential uses, such as kid zones or bounce houses. We're seeing a lot of self-storage conversions. The self-storage industry is booming. We're seeing a lot of demolition of older retail spaces that are being converted for industrial distribution, flex space, which has office and warehouse as a component. So the real estate space in terms of retail, and I think what's going to happen as well in office as well, there's a huge shift. The market is opposite things are happening. You've got office and retail that are suffering. You've got multifamily, industrial, and self-storage that are booming. So you're seeing that shift between the suffering kind of subsectors to where where the money is going and where the returns are flowing, which is in the multifamily, industrial, and self-storage spaces.
So speaking of shifts and change, John, I want to turn over to you. You made a big change about 4 or 5 years ago, moving from the Towson Town Center, which, people used to come to the Towson Town Center just to come to Radcliffe Jewelers, to Kenilworth, which is also in Towson. A great job done by Brian Gibbons over there. That must have been hard, John. You were there for how long? 30 years, maybe more.
Yeah, and like Jonathan was saying, things change. And quite frankly, I have no problem saying this. GGP at the time was having their struggles, and they could have retained us as a tenant. Quite frankly, if they had kind of worked with us a little bit better, they didn't have to lose us as a tenant. As a result, we felt like the location at Kenilworth was a good space for us. We felt like our clients, would follow us there. And at the end of the day, one of my biggest vendor relationships with Rolex didn't want to be in the regional mall. They preferred to be in a smaller center. They wanted us to be, go where the customer is. That's I think that's a good general piece of advice anyway. Make sure you go where the customer is. And our clients told us very loud and clear that they didn't want to go to the regional center to come to visit us, and we needed to find a space that was the right place for them. For me, one of the things that if I look back on my business life, if I had to question some things, I've sort of, as a general rule, not owned the real estate that my stores are in. good and bad. There's a lot of financial reasons to own the real estate, a lot of tax reasons to own the real estate. But I do know if I own the real estate, I'd be the last person to move, because I'd want to stay in my building. So I do believe that making sure that you can go where the customer is smart for us.
To Jimmy, talk about change real quick. You've been in the car business for over 30 years, 36, I want to say. So what would that be? 90, what? 90, 90, what? 85?
85.
Something? 85. Okay. We didn't even have an internet back then. We didn't have computers. I don't even think we had cell phones, right? I mean, maybe a big one in your car. I don't even remember. Can you just think back for a few seconds? Buying cars online, like what's happened in the world, but in your business, could you ever have thought about that, even that somebody wouldn't have to come into a showroom and test drive the vehicle?
So it's, to think that somebody would buy something like a car or a house online, it's pretty, that people are actually buying houses online without even seeing the house.
Right.
I mean, that's how today is, that the world has changed. And we are with my son, Ryan, we are actually beta testing a completely virtual used car site right now that we've developed. And it's going to be, you'll be able to buy that car right from your sofa, pick the car out, have a complete 360-degree view of the vehicle, do all your financing, print, you can DocuSign everything, and Venmo us the down payment, and we'll deliver the car right to your driveway. So it's we're making that available. We're going live actually this weekend. We've been working on this for 5 months, and we expect a very small amount of consumers to be taking advantage of it in the beginning, but I think it's going to evolve. It's not like buying a toaster on Amazon. It's buying a car is much more complicated. We have a trade involved, we have payoffs involved, we have financing involved, we have credit scores involved. So there's a lot, DMV involved. So there's a lot more involved than just buying an item on Amazon. But there are the technologies there, and we've been able to cobble it all together and make a site that's really, really interesting and easy to use for the consumer. And we're excited about it. And we're going to be offering that up, to dealers around the country to join in and be on the site. So it's definitely evolving, and it's something that's happening. But we're still seeing the customers still want to come in and touch and feel the car and test drive the car. So you used the term omni-channel earlier, with John and Radcliffe, and we want to be any place the customer wants to be.
Right.
If they want to come in, great. If they want to do it online, great. If they want to do half and half, great. We'll be there for them. I think that's the way of the future. You have to give the customer what they want.
Guys, we've got about 10 or 15 minutes left. John? Yeah.
Again, this is just sort of following up. We did an Instagram live session on Sunday afternoon, showed 55 items. We had and sold 53 of the 55 items in a 2-hour time frame. Just in a simple Instagram live where people joined in and wanted to look. I mean, there's just the consumer preference today. You got to be able to, like Jimmy, you got to be able to do all of it. You have to be able to meet them where they are and how they want to do it.
Guys, we have a lot of great questions coming in here. I just want to kind of fire them off. Harel, I'll take this one to you. This is from Lauren. Talk a little bit about your most humbling experience, your most humbling failure, and your recovery, and the lessons that you may have learned.
So in 2007, we were very deep in the reverse mortgage and the subprime mortgage business. We did all their IT, companies in DC, Columbia, Maryland. It was really, the growth of our business was very much around that industry. And as you recall, subprime mortgages took a nosedive in early 2008 when the bubble burst. And we found ourselves, if we were up 25% year over year, we were down 80% in 2008. And I really questioned my own motives. Does it make sense? Should I go back and work for someone? And all the things that I thought I knew down to my core, really question yourself. And my family at the time was like, listen, diversify, find other industries, don't have all your eggs in one basket. And we actually found healthcare at that point in time. And from that point, 08, 09, 2010, we followed a few healthcare organizations as they expanded across the country. So it was the worst thing that ever happened to us. And it was also the best thing that ever happened to us. So it was very humbling. But even the most confident entrepreneur is going to have those moments where you question your life decisions and you question your initiatives. And I had young kids at the time, right? So there's a lot of pressure. There definitely is pressure that builds up, but it's all a matter of what you do with that pressure and how you take the negative and turn it into positive, I believe.
So speaking of pressure, Jonathan, I want to go back to you. You had mentioned before that because of the pandemic, the early part of the pandemic, your revenues went from maybe 600,000 a month to maybe down to 7 or 8,000 a month. Okay, I mean, maybe for you, that's okay. You're the owner. You'll figure it out. But you have employees. You have people who depend on you. You have families of people who depend on you. So how do you keep it together in that situation when literally you see no money coming in, yet you've got tens, if not dozens, if not hundreds of people that depend upon you?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I mean, I'm responsible for around 500 people. So, fortunately, most of those individuals, were covered by revenue sources that were diversified and were still coming in. And our plan was just take it 1 week at a time. Let's see, how revenue comes in next week, the week after. Let's not jump to any kind of, conclusions. I think, in the case of the hotel where we lost 98% of our revenue, the solution, was clear in that with unemployment benefits there to kind of support our team members, and we did the math and we saw that most of the folks were not going to lose out. They were going to be covered by the state and federal government. We had no choice really but to lay off staff and just watch the weeks pass while the pandemic was in full swing. But so thankfully 75%, 80% of our team we were able to retain throughout the pandemic. But yeah, certainly, I mean, Gary, your point is, how do you make those decisions? I mean, I would say that you hold off as long as you can. You go week by week, you don't panic, and you communicate with the team and say, hey, everybody, this is what we're seeing. We're, show them the income statements, and you say, this is where we are. This is how long we can hold out without letting anybody go, and just so they're in the know and they can make their own decisions. And you just try to do the best that you can.
Guys, I want to start to wrap up here. And first of all, Jimmy, for you, this is from Allison, not a question, just a comment. Please tell Jimmy how much we miss him and appreciate all that he did for the Associated. So
Thank you,
I'm going to take it. Yeah, I'm going to take it that's good for you, that Allison. The other thing for you, Jimmy, was, this is from Beth. Why did you leave Baltimore for New York to establish businesses up there?
That's a long story. So, look, I'm born and raised in Baltimore. It was a great run for 50 years, and I still come back. I'll be back there this week. My internist is still there, so I had my annual physical on Tuesday, so I'm coming into town. So we still are. When people say, where are you from? I still say I'm from Baltimore, but my kids are. I have grandkids up here in New York. I also have a new grandson in Park City, Utah. So we split our time, and life is good. And but my heart's still in Baltimore, and I miss everybody there. But things have worked out real well.
John, this one's for you. Is it different as a seasoned entrepreneur now than you were when you were a new entrepreneur? I guess over time, what you've learned?
Sure. I mean, experience matters. Learning how to deal with some of the situations that you've just kind of even gone through matters. We all can look back, I think, on times that, boy, if I had the experience that I had today, how would I have handled, things differently? I mean, I look back even at 9/11, and I think about, how I handled the panic around our business and our people on 9/11 versus how I would handle it today you just grow up and you learn. Compensation, I think that's learning the nuances of how to compensate employees in your own particular industry. I think that just takes a lifetime. It takes a lifetime to get there, and figuring out what works and what doesn't work. And then lastly, I think so much of about running a business in entrepreneurship is about leadership. I encourage everybody to devour books on leadership from different people and different perspectives, and find the things that work for you. There's a whole library and world of it out there, and put those nuggets together. But I think over time you just learn, and those experiences, help you to just react probably better and stronger and more decisively than not.
Guys, I think we should, it's about time to wrap it up. Let's just go around the room one more time. If there's a final takeaway, Harel, Turkel, we'll start with you first. Just a final takeaway for people that have joined us today on what you would say about your journey and about entrepreneurship in general.
Great. So thank you again for having me. Great group. I'm actually humbled to be amongst these seasoned business leaders. And I would say there's an earlier question you asked, and one thing that I was always taught, and I still use it today in my business, act as if you're a business 20 times your size, right? Like there are contracts we wouldn't have gotten if we said we had 4 employees at the time. But, if you can act with confidence and you can, prove the results, then the business will come. It really will come. So keep your head up if you're trying to start a business. Don't turn things away, and just have an open mind, because chances are you can succeed if you stay positive, and you also always want to find a mentor. Mentorship is crucial, and I've had mentors for years and still do 18 years in.
Jonathan Ehrenfeld, final takeaway.
Work hard and be kind to others. Again, not saying that I am that, but I learn every day from others who have succeeded in that space, and I found that to be when I'm doing it right, it's the most rewarding. So just find ways to be good to others, to be kind to others, and when you're doing that, things find a way to come together.
Jimmy Berg?
I would say the best way to be successful is to build a team. And it's all about building a team. And to be a successful entrepreneur, you need to lead, and you need to develop a team around you. And if you can do that, you'll be successful, because you can't do it all yourself. And especially, like Jonathan said, he has 500 employees, and, I have close to 300 people on my team, and, all of them together, we can be successful. But without that, we're nothing. So it's all about the team.
John Shmerler.
Yeah, I'm just going to beat the core values drum one more time. I mean, I can't overstress it enough. I think the biggest tool that everybody needs is a mirror. Go look in that mirror. The person staring back at you is the only one you can't get away from. And you need to know exactly who you are, be comfortable in your own skin, know that the values of what your business are all about are what's inside of you, and live it that way. And if you do that, you'll never have trouble sleeping, whether the revenue's good or the revenue's bad, or the balance sheet's good or the balance sheet's bad. You'll at least put your head down every night knowing that I'm being true to the person in the mirror. And if the scorecard, which is your financial statement, is good, it probably just means that you're in the right place with your core values at that time. And know that they change. They change over time. Jimmy's core values and my core values and Jonathan's and Harel's have changed as we've gotten older, and our circumstances have changed, and our family dynamics have changed, and our businesses have changed. And you just have to know that that's okay too. But just be true to the person staring back at you, because that's at the end of the day all you got.
Sounds good. Guys, very hearty thank you to all that have participated today. Jimmy Berg, partner at AutoBuy. Jonathan Ehrenfeld, President, CEO of Blue Ocean Realty Investments, Atlantic Mechanical. John Shmerler, President, CEO of Radcliffe Jewelers. Harel Turkel, President, CEO of SOS Technology. And of course, George Nemphos, partner at the law office of Nemphos Brow. One quick note before we go: mark your calendar for our next event, which will be July 20th, 5 p.m. for a conversation moderated by Jmore's publisher, Scott Rifkin, with Baltimore City Mayor Brandon Scott and Baltimore County Executive Johnny Olszewski. The topic, Baltimore's resilience. Check jmoreliving.com for further information and details on our next event, again, on July 20th. Gentlemen, thank you so much. And a special thanks to all of our attendees tonight. Hope you enjoyed our discussion. Hope to see you soon in person. Take care and be well.